Hey everyone, I'm 95 Fathoms. Back in spring of 2022, I began a quest to hunt for a team of all of the Moth Pokémon available in the Generation 5 games as full odds shinies. This proved a little complex due to Gen 5's focus on Unovan Pokémon and Volcarona being the only Unovan Moth, but I was able to obtain Dustox, Masquerain, and Venomoth through post-game hunts in White 1, and I even threw in Beautifly and Butterfree for a full set of Lepidoptera, which is the order of insects encompassing both moths and butterflies. With Volcarona planned as the quest's capstone, I was in pretty good shape. But all the while, I found myself anxiously pushing back the hunt for the one Pokemon I could obtain before fighting the Elite Four, Mothim. See, its evolution line is among the around 160 species not huntable in the wild anywhere in Gen 5, all of which only available through either shiny locked encounters in places like the Hidden Grottos and Entry Forest, or transferring from the Generation 4 games. I wanted to specifically hunt for Burmy in Generation 5, so a transfer was out of the question, and Pokemon were only made available in Entry Forest via the Pokemon Dream World that shut down in early 2014, and since I didn't keep a Burmy around from back then, I would have had to modify my save to even encounter it, and then do a shiny lock removal to hunt it. I'm not opposed to either of those in a vacuum if they're the only options, but in this case, one option remained: hatching for shiny Burmy through full odds eggs. And so that was the option I chose. Hatching eggs is one of the lengthier ways to hunt, but it is by no means unexplored territory, and Burmy benefits from having one of the faster egg hatches. However, it also has one significant obstacle that you're rarely forced to face in an egg hunt, and that is the potential for phasing on a shiny other than your target, due to the fact that Burmy's evolution is determined by its gender. A male Burmy will always become Mothim, and a female Burmy will always become Wormadam. It's a 50-50 gender ratio, but any shiny hunter knows that the expected odds are just that. Expected, not guaranteed, and a coin flip still doesn't feel like great odds when you're seeing Pokemon as slowly as you do on an egg hunt. The best thing to do in light of all of this was to optimize the hunt as much as I could. I used 2 English Burmy with different original trainers for breeding to get eggs as fast as possible while keeping it full odds, and as more of a bonus than an optimization, my female Burmy was from the Dream World to give me the 60% chance of passing down the hidden ability. Flame Body or Magma Armor is an obvious must for speeding up the hatching process, and I specifically chose to use Volcarona for that since Fly is very useful to have perpetually in your party. The final component in my optimization was using Hatching Power, a pass power obtainable through the Entralink, and while I won't bore you with a full explanation of the Entralink system, I'll give you an overview of what I did, with the clarification that the system works differently in Black and White 2, and this applies specifically to Black and White 1 since I did this hunt, like the rest of the quest, in White 1. Taking 2 systems and 2 copies of specifically Black and White 1, Black and White 2 can't communicate with Black and White 1 via Entralink, I set the hatching game up in Nimbasa City. You have to be somewhere in the Hexagon section of Unova to connect with another game via the Entralink, with Nimbasa being the first accessible area in that section. The secondary game that didn't do any of the hatching I took to the Entralink via the wireless feature on the Sea Gear, and then I walked onto one of the bridges there and crossed over once it connected to my hatching game. After successfully connecting, I'd interact with the hatching game's entry, trigger the mission that's selected by default, and teleport to the other game's world. And voila, after interacting with my other trainer, I've got Hatching Power ready to go. By default, this gives Hatching Power S, which lasts 30 minutes, but this mission can give other pass powers as well, including the hour-long Hatching Power Max. There are 2 ways to reroll which pass power this mission gives. The first is to complete all 6 missions on the entry, and the second is to simply let the timer on this particular mission run out so that you fail the mission. Which power it rerolls to is RNG, and it may therefore take a bit to get the correct one, but you can save the hatching game once you get Hatching Power Max and hold on to it as long as you don't do anything to reroll it. You don't need Hatching Power Max to hunt the way I did, and some have other preferences for hatching eggs in this generation. It's also objectively easier to do egg hunts in the sequel games, since Black 2 and White 2 have the Oval Charm to increase the speed of egg pickups, and they include the option in box management to grab and move multiple Pokemon at once, something that Black and White 1 strangely omit. But as I said, I was always going to hatch this in White 1, and given that, this approach was what felt best to me. The last thing I did, just for fun, was give myself a custom Mothim-themed Sea Gear skin for good luck. The shutdown of the global link back in 2014 means that there's no official way of changing your Sea Gear at all anymore, and you ordinarily would be limited to official skins only to begin with, but it's still possible to change it through other means, and since it's just an aesthetic difference, I thought it would be fun to have. I began hatching for Burmy with Trash Cloak parents, not out of a preference for that form, but because I felt like the shiny would be most noticeable in it. My first hatches for Burmy were on January 23rd, 2023, but it wasn't until February that I really began to dive into it in earnest, cycling it in and out of the hunts that I worked on regularly to make progress on it but still have the satisfaction of doing some quicker hunts. At the time, Sonics was regularly streaming his Gen 3 Farfetch'd hunt via Full Odds Eggs, and I used this as a motivator to work on my own egg hunt. When he went live, I'd always set up Burmy. It wasn't too surprising, as a result, that it was during one of his streams that I hatched my first shiny. What was surprising was that it came only a little over a month after I'd started the hunt.
What? No! No! Oh my god! Oh my god! No! What? Oh my god! Shiny Burmy!
It's female. Oh no. That was 1,821 eggs. I was not expecting to get shiny full odds egg Burmy. Everything else in this batch is male. Everything else in this batch. But I was not expecting to get shiny full odds egg Burmy so far under odds. I forgot to do a nature guess here. It is mild. I was watching Sonic's stream when I got this, so I'll look at the nature guesses. Impish, docile, bold, rash, jolly, sassy, bold, bashful. It does not look like anybody guessed mild. I found myself way more excited about this phase than I'd expected to be. The extremely fast hunt helped with that, of course, but I'd never used a Wormadam before and curiously read up on it as I considered what I might try to do with this one. In the process of doing so, I discovered something that probably should have been obvious if I'd ever thought much about it, which is that Wormadam isn't just a bigger and more complex bagworm, but is based on the real existence of female bagworm moths that never develop functional wings and continue to live and even lay eggs in their bags. This, on top of the fact that I now had a shiny one, instantly bolstered Wormadam up to a favorite Pokemon of mine. The primary reason I love Pokemon as much as I do is because I love animals, and seeing real-life biological phenomena reflected in them is one of my favorite things. Even if it hadn't done that, though, this realization inherently threw a twist into my plans for this quest. Wormadam may not have the traditional appearance of a moth, but that doesn't stop it from being one, and that meant my moth team had a new member. As a bonus, this Burmy did hit the 60% chance of getting the hidden ability, so that was a cool novelty. Not that Wormadam's hidden ability of Overcoat is particularly useful in this generation, especially if it isn't Plant Cloak, but it's cool nonetheless. Honestly, this worked out pretty perfectly, rounding out the full team of 6 moths I wished I were able to have from the start. And I already had the Wormadam, so all I had left to do was keep hatching for that male Burmy. Wanting to change things up a bit, I pulled my Burmy parents out of the daycare and switched them to Sandy Cloak. Again, this wasn't a preference since I'd probably pick Plant Cloak as my favorite if you forced me to pick one, but I felt the shiny was second most noticeable in this form. To my utter shock, it didn't even take a full month to hatch my second shiny.
What? What? No! No! What? Shiny Burmy? There's no way! There's no way! That was only 542 eggs! What? Oh my god. Oh my god. And now I have to check the gender. No, there's no way. There's no way. Am I accidentally doing Masuda method somehow? There's no way. Okay. It's another female. I guess we can do a nature guess. Nature guess naive. I guess. It's lonely.
You heard me ponder in reacting to this ridiculously quick shiny whether I was doing Masuda method, and while I definitely was not, that pretty well sums up how this second Burmy felt to me. Too good to be true. It kind of made me glad that it wasn't the male, since any excitement was pretty thoroughly marred by that feeling. But not to worry, my games would make sure I wouldn't repeat that anxiety with Phase 3 anyway. This second female hatch was also just pretty disheartening, and so my third phase started off slowly. I began by swapping my Burmy parents to Plant Cloak because I figured if I was hatching a third shiny Burmy, I might as well hatch in a different cloak. But a lot of my shiny hunting energy went toward other hunts I was trying to clear out, and personal circumstances made hunting difficult in the early summer. Once I'd cleared out my Gen 9 Hisuian Zorua egg hunt in August, I decided I would work consistently at the Burmy hunt until I cleared that out as well. As I slowly crawled toward odds, I was finding shinies, but none of them were the one I really wanted to show up. The shiny hunter superstition of feeling like I was wasting my good luck on these much quicker hunts set in, and so I made the choice to solo hunt Burmy until I got my target. And one day of hunting later, 6,000 eggs into Phase 3, I decided to try adding a second game. I didn't particularly want to do that, but I multi-hunt in large part because I feel restless if my hands aren't occupied enough, and hatching eggs on one system was definitely not active enough to prevent that. You'll only ever see one screen at a time in my footage though, which is honestly more than anything just because I couldn't come up with a configuration I liked that fit 2 screens on my layout at once. Despite the extra speed this gave me, my next shiny was still far off on the horizon. Granted, the second game provided its own detriments. It's much harder to keep track of your party status on 2 games at once, and that's paramount in an egg hunt so you can know when you have room for more eggs and when you need to release hatched Pokemon. I used the save screen to check my party members, which loads much more quickly than the party screen, but I'd often just go through with a save while I was at it, and the combination of frequently forgetting my party status and often saving for no reason meant that there was a lot of inefficiency in this setup. Still, the larger factor was that the number of eggs hatched on this phase climbed up to and past odds and proceeded to exceed double odds. I took a short break toward the end of December to spend a little time in the Indigo Disc once that released, but I otherwise remained staunchly on target until something finally popped on January 11th, 2024, just shy of 2 weeks before the 1-year anniversary of starting the hunt.
Oh, no, 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 no. Oh my god. Oh my god. No. I am so scared. I am so scared to check the status screen. Oh my god. I think I might actually cry. You may notice this is on a different game. I started dual hunting. This game has the clock maxed out. This came after 17,000 622 eggs. Phase 3 for shiny male Burmy is a female. Another female. It's gentle nature. I didn't even remember to do a nature guess. What is its ability? It got overcoat, so it got the hidden ability. So that's the second one with the hidden ability. I know I got super lucky with my first 2 phases, so I can only be so upset, but oh, I want to do something else. I really want to do something else. But I guess we'll show it off. We'll show it off in the grass. Nothing else I can do. Show it off and move on to the next phase. So here we are. I mean, I'll keep plugging away at it. I've been, talking to one of my friends, keeping her updated on this hunt, and we just talked, a few days ago, and she was like, I don't know how you have the motivation to keep doing it. And like, honestly, I kind of don't either, but it's also a thing of like, I have to get this shiny. I've started this. I'm not going to quit until I get it. All of this would be a waste of effort if I just quit without getting the male shiny Burmy. And I don't think I will ever feel as satisfied to find a shiny as I will when I find the male Burmy, but this is almost definitely the most taxing shiny hunt I've ever done.
With full odds, you can do way worse than a 17k hunt, but you have to remember that even beyond it being a slow hunt, this was the only thing I was hunting and had been hunting for 3 months now, and my bad luck with the coin flip so far didn't really inspire confidence that I wouldn't just do this, or worse, all over again on the next phase. With that said, this phase had a very different effect on me than the previous one. I was determined to keep pressing on, determined to see this hunt to its conclusion, determined to keep my momentum going. And it paid off. Just under a month later, on February 9th, ironically alongside another Sonic stream, I hatched my 4th Burmy at 5,929 eggs.
Oh my god! Shiny Burmy! Shiny Burmy! Oh my god! 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 It's over! It's over! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! There's no way! There's no... Oh, oh my god! Oh my god! I'm just repeating, oh my god! I don't even know... I didn't remember to do a nature guess. It's relaxed. Does it have the hidden ability? Oh. Didn't get the hidden ability. I don't even care. I don't even care. Honestly, it's funny because I joked about how I was gonna cry after going to 17K, but if I've ever been close to crying for a shiny before, it was the relief of being done with this hunt. As I said, I've been working at this hunt for so long. There was a lot of last year, because yes, been at this hunt for over a year now. It was January 23rd, I think, when I started hunting this, and my DS clock is accurate. So it's February 9th, 2024. So it's been over a year since I started hunting this. You can see how much time I put into this hunt, because the in-game time, I started this hunt at like 3 hours on the clock, because all I did was play through to get to Nimbasa, and then I started hatching. And my original white version, the clock is maxed out, as you saw in the last phase. That one started with like 700 hours or something like that, I think, before I started hatching these eggs. But this one started from 3 hours. So I did like 940 hours just hunting this. Granted, I had some idle time, so I'm not going to say that was all time spent hatching eggs. But it's been quite an ordeal. But I'm so glad it hatched on the Moth quest file. I was really hoping that the Mothim would, even though I couldn't single hunt it. I don't know how long it's gonna take me to process that I finally finished this hunt. It at many points felt like I was never going to finish it. Let's get into the main event here and show off Shiny Mothim's evolution. There it is. And it is easy to say this now, but it was so worth it. I mean, that looks gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous. There he is in all of his glory. I mean, that's such a good shiny. That's such a stunning shiny. It was a lot of work, but man, am I excited to see that. As I said after the third phase, I don't know if I will ever feel as accomplished about finding a shiny as I did with this male Burmy. It's not the most objectively impressive hunt, there are way more challenging ones out there, and there are even plenty of species exclusively huntable through Full Odds eggs in Gen 5, whose eggs take way longer to hatch. But I do think that the potential to phase element in such a long-winded hunt presents a unique challenge, with Snorunt Slime being the only other one with a gender-specific evolution that is also not encounterable in the wild in Gen 5. The shiny hunting community regularly sees wild statistical outliers, and to be a shiny hunter is to be aware that you could find yourself face-to-face with one of said outliers at any moment, in both phase odds and the general shiny odds, meaning that until I finished this hunt, I was always prepared for the next shiny to take over 60,000 eggs and still just be another female. But in a lot of ways, that's exactly why this hunt was, to me, the essence of what Full Odds is about. I could have gotten this shiny far more easily than I did, but like any good Full Odds hunt, this was about the journey and the satisfaction of getting something so rare, not about just wanting a different colored Mothim. Entry Forest Runaways would have been an exceptionally easy alternative to go for, but I just can't even imagine how much less meaningful this hunt would have been had I done that. Gender is static in Entry Forest, so I wouldn't have even had the chance of phasing, meaning I would never have wound up digging more into Wormadam's real-life inspiration, and would never have realized it's a moth. I could have easily gotten a male shiny Burmy after a couple of days of hunting super fast runaways, and it would probably be one of the least memorable shinies in my collection. Instead, that Mothim is my most valued shiny because of the sheer amount of time and energy I put into this hunt, because of the story that came about through the process of it, from the way each shiny hatch occurred and the muscle memory I got into with the hunt, to recreating Burmy and Mothim's sprites with perler beads during the hunt for good luck, to all the time I spent gathering eggs to hatch later while on the train to and from work, and all sorts of other times when I couldn't record. The only memorable attachment I had to the Burmy line previously was watching Brooke of the Shiny Twins video getting a male shiny Burmy in Gen 4 and realizing for the first time how amazing shiny Mothim looks. And now Mothim is absolutely one of my favorite Pokemon.
But even though Mothim was always supposed to be the target of this hunt, I actually think I have even more affection for Burmy and Wormadam, especially because of how overlooked they tend to be and the fascinating biological phenomenon that Wormadam represents. People give their shinies a lot of flack, and they're definitely not as drastic a change as Mothims, but I actually love both of their shinies too, and I sure noticed shiny Burmy in all 3 cloaks the moment I looked at them. I didn't really expect Volcarona to get dethroned as my favorite Pokemon by this line 15 years after it became my favorite, but over the past year and a half since I finished this hunt, I've gradually come to accept that I think it has. And to be clear, I still love Volcarona. That hasn't changed at all. I just think I might love the Burmy line a little bit more. For what it's worth, the female Burmy I decided to evolve for my team was that very first one. It got the hidden ability and it hatched on the Moth quest file, but also the excitement I felt for it despite it being a phase made it seem like the only choice to use. I honestly love all 3 Wormadam cloaks, but I wound up deciding to evolve it into Sandy Cloak Wormadam based on the logic of that giving me one party member who is immune to electric with some tools to fight fire among a team of majority bug-flying Pokemon. Since I'm a numbers nerd, I do want to review the statistics from this hunt, in which I was both lucky and unlucky. It took twice as many phases to get a male Burmy as expected, which resulted in a total of 25,914 eggs hatched in pursuit of my target. On the other hand, my intimidating 25,914 eggs average out to only 6,478.5 per shiny, meaning I was still under odds on average. So while the hunt was rough, it could definitely have been a lot worse. But rough or not, as I said, this hunt is absolutely the most memorable one I've done to date, and this Moth quest generally is my favorite shiny hunting quest I've undertaken. All throughout the hunt, I knew I was working toward that and toward something that would be so rewarding to complete, and so there was no way I could have not seen this through to its completion. I hope I've done justice to this hunt and given you an idea of just how crazy but also rewarding it was, and I really hope you've enjoyed coming along on the ride with me on my journey to hatch a shiny male Burmy in Gen 5. I can't say precisely when it'll happen, but I absolutely plan to do more full odds egg hunts in Gen 5 in the future. There's some really great Pokemon and shinies only available that way, and I love Gen 5 so much that I'm always excited to get shinies specifically in these games. I'll see you in this quest's capstone hunt for Volcarona and in many other hunts in the future, but for now, best of luck on all of your hunts, and take care.